guys, welcome back to Thought Splash. Today we're going to be talking about the 4 different adult attachment styles. If you wouldn't mind just doing me a quick favor and liking the video and subscribing to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Alright, let's get into it. So we're going to be talking about adult attachment styles and how they play into our romantic relationships. So the preeminent psychologists of attachment theory are Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby. And essentially they found patterns between the way in which a person is parented as an infant and the attachment style they form to their caregiver and the attachment style that they'll have later on down the line in their life in the context of their romantic relationship. I'm not going to be talking very much about how attachments are formed in childhood. If you would like to know more about that, I will link my article that I wrote on it on our website down below, so you can check that extra information out if you're interested in doing so. For this video, I'm just going to be talking about each attachment style and how to identify the attachment styles. So the first attachment style is the secure attachment style. Those with a secure attachment style don't typically have a lot of trouble or problems being in healthy relationships and finding people to fulfill their needs. These individuals are typically very good at balancing independence and interdependence, meaning that they don't need to be with their partner all of the time. However, they are comfortable spending time together, relying on their partner, being affectionate, being emotionally vulnerable, but they still have, their own independence outside of the relationship. So it's basically like the ultimate healthy balance. These folks typically have good trust in that they don't have issues with trust. They're comfortable, like I said before, with being emotionally vulnerable and with sharing their emotions with their partner. As a result of that, they're more likely to go to their partner in times of stress or hardship and seek support. And they're also more likely to give that support if and when their partner comes to them needing that support, because they're emotionally open and available to both receive and give that support to their partners. These people typically have normal to high self-esteem and positive social interactions with others. Essentially, these are just really great people to have as partners. They're secure in themselves. They're able to deliver that security to the context of a relationship. And as a result, they are generally just healthy partners. Okay, so the second attachment style that we're going to be talking about is the anxious attachment style. Individuals with an anxious attachment style are, well, they can be kind of a little bit clingier. Not always, but essentially this attachment style is characterized by individuals who want and desire love in a relationship. However, once they're in that relationship, they start to feel unsafe sometimes and a little fearful. So what happens is that once they're in a relationship, it's like this anxiety kicks in and they have a fear that their partner may not return the same amount of feeling. In other words, like they might think, oh, my partner doesn't love me as much as I love them. As a result, there, is this anxiety that kind of builds inside of them about the relationship, about, wondering if them and their partner are on the same page. And because of that, they typically need more reassurance in the relationship. Words of affirmation, if you've watched my other video on the love languages, are big for people who have an anxious attachment style because it helps them to feel more secure in the relationship. Because of their anxiety about the relationship and about whether or not themselves and their partner are on the same page, are more likely to struggle with trust issues and are sometimes prone to becoming more of the jealous type because they struggle more with trusting. Another thing about the anxious attachers is they typically sometimes will end up in unhealthy or toxic relationships because they struggle with being single. They enjoy being in a relationship with somebody. It kind of fulfills their need to be wanted and with someone. But like I said before, once they're in it, they get a little bit more anxious. When their relationships with their partners eventually do come to an end, these people usually struggle a little bit more with that breakup. For example, some anxious attachers actually become really distraught and have a very hard time moving on emotionally from breakups. So the next attachment style that we're going to be talking about is the avoidant attachment style. Guys, this is that guy who won't call you back. No, but like for real, avoidants are, I'm just gonna start this off by saying avoidants are actually usually men. Men fall into the avoidant attachment style more so often than women do. And just backtracking a little bit, people who have an anxious attachment style are also more likely to be women. Those are just statistically what's more likely to happen. So with avoidance, the hallmark of an avoidant is this is a person who values independence above pretty much everything else. Meaning that this person struggles to get into and commit to relationships because they see the relationship as a way of taking away their independence. So these people typically struggle with intimacy and emotional connectedness and emotional vulnerability. And that will manifest and show itself through being busy, for example. Like, this is the kind of person that will make excuses of why they can't see you. Like, oh, you know, I have to work all week long and I'm just not gonna have any free time. And, you know, so then you'll have to see them on the weekend and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, I just have all these errands to run. And basically this is that person. These people are not big emotional investors. So depending on them, if you do get into a relationship with them, depending on them is not the greatest idea because they are less likely and able to offer support in a relationship. Again, because they have a hard time relying on their partner. They have a hard time with interdependence. They have a hard time with coupling. They, you know, place all of this emphasis on being independent and being able to do everything by themselves. That the partnership is seen as secondary to their life. It's not seen as a priority, if you will, because they do struggle with commitment, are more likely to engage in casual sex, hooking up, friends with benefit situations, basically anything that allows them to hold on to their independence while, you know, still also being able to get what they want. If they do get into relationships, once the relationship comes to an end, they kind of wash their hands of it. They have an easier time moving on. They're not as distraught as, like, let's say an anxious type or maybe even as sad as a secure type might be. It's not that they don't have feelings about having the relationship end. It's just that they have gotten their independence back. And to them, they're happy about that because that was the most important thing to begin with. So the last type that we're going to be talking about today is the disorganized type. I've dated a disorganized type. And it was a lot of headaches. So not to diss the disorganized type, basically the disorganized type is kind of like a mix of the anxious type and the avoidant type, which are basically opposites. So this person is like the push me, pull me type. The pull me is like the anxious type, right? Pull me, come here. And the push me type, pushing you away, is like the avoidant type. So the disorganized type is kind of like a blending of these two different characteristics. These people, like the anxious type, tend to desire a relationship, but once the relationship becomes too emotionally close, they start to push away and become uncomfortable. And the reason for this is these people are typically not in touch with their own emotions. They're typically distant from themselves and detached from themselves in the way that they feel. And usually the reason for this is because in childhood or at some other point in their life, they may have experienced trauma that made them feel that they needed to distance or detach them, like their feelings, from themselves. While they might want a relationship, getting into a relationship, it becomes uncomfortable for them. And so this will play out and then kind of going back and forth and vacillating between their actions and emotions. Let me give you an example. The disorganized type is the type to maybe one day, you know, you're with this person and everything's great. Your relationship feels really solid. It feels really secure. You guys are vibing. You guys are happy. Everything feels great. And then, you know, another day, this person is cold and they're distant and you don't know why, and you're really confused because you thought everything was okay. That's this kind of person. This person goes back and forth, push me, pull me, push me, pull me. And this can be really exhausting to people in relationships with a disorganized type, because it can lead to, you know, issues with trust and issues with worry about wondering whether or not this disorganized partner is actually really into them or not. The disorganized type fears rejection. They fear rejection so much that sometimes they actually will end their own relationships prematurely just to try to make sure that their partner doesn't reject them before they can reject them. So like they cut off our relationship just to make sure that they don't get rejected. I know it's confusing, but that's how these people are, is they're very back and forth. And that's why I say that it's like a blend of the anxious and the avoidant. These people are also usually prone to emotional lash outs. And part of the reason for that is because they are often detached from their emotions. So when they reattach to their emotions, sometimes they don't know how to feel that out. And they may lash out at their partners emotionally. These people do struggle to maintain healthy relationships because of their back and forth pattern. As a result, one of two things usually happens with the disorganized type. They end up alone for a period of time, or they end up in a relationship that becomes unhealthy in part because of their tendencies. All right, guys, so those are the 4 attachment styles. Again, they're secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. At this point in time, I do have some great news. The great news is that if you are not a secure attachment type and you would like to be a secure attachment type, there are ways to become more securely attached. If you'd like to become more securely attached, it starts with you. And what I mean by that is it's important that you recognize that about yourself and that you take concrete steps in order to foster a more secure attachment. Coupling with somebody who is already a secure is a great way to help you become more secure. But like I said before, it's not magic. You yourself have to be willing to take the steps to become more secure. And if you're willing to do that, or you're already doing that, then coupling with somebody who's a secure can really be like the icing on the cake to help you kind of push forward even more to becoming more secure yourself. Another way to foster a more secure attachment is talk therapy. Good old-fashioned talk therapy. I am a firm believer that anybody and everybody can benefit from therapy. It can be very beneficial for one reason or another for all of us. In the context of your attachment style, therapy can be really helpful in assisting you to bolster your communication skills and become more comfortable with being emotionally vulnerable and sharing the way that you feel, because essentially that's what therapy is all about. So they can teach you these skills and help you to practice them so that later on down the line, or even in a current relationship, you can foster more secure attachment because you're more comfortable communicating and you're more comfortable opening up about how you feel, which is a keystone to any healthy relationship. For those of you who are already secure, the kind of bad news or, just not great news is that your attachment style isn't static either, meaning it can change as well. The reason for a secure's attachment style to become more anxious or more avoidant usually be because of a major life change. So for example, if you go through like a really big hardship or negative life circumstance, like say a divorce or death of a family member or an accident, these are all things that can make your attachment style temporarily or for a while more anxious or more avoidant. And that's very natural. I mean, it's very natural when we go through something that's traumatic, it can affect things about us. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, a little advice. I think that one of the most important things to do if you're hoping to establish a relationship with somebody early on is to just very clearly communicate your needs. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody who, wants to talk daily, maybe on the phone, or you like to text, or, you want to be in consistent communication with your partner, it's going to be really important that you communicate that. Because if your partner or the person that you're hoping to partner up with, right, in the early stages, is kind of the opposite of that, and they say, hey, I don't feel the need to talk all day long, or even every day, then that would be the time where you guys have a conversation and see if there's a way that you can compromise so that both of your needs are met. If neither of you are willing to compromise on this, then just to put it very straightforwardly, you guys are probably not a good match, because we want somebody who is going to be able to meet our needs. And we all have different needs, and our attachment styles a lot of the time will dictate our needs. So, the anxious wants more reassurance. And if someone's uncomfortable giving reassurance, then that probably wouldn't be a good partner for an anxious attachment style. Another example would be avoidants need a lot of alone time and free time and don't place as much emphasis on wanting to spend time together. So if you want to spend a lot of time together, coupling with an avoidant is probably not in your best interest. So these are just some examples of why it's so important to communicate your needs with potential and prospective partners in the beginning, because you want to make sure that that person is somebody that could actually be a good match for you. All right, guys, I hope this video has been helpful in understanding the 4 different types of adult attachment styles. Like I mentioned earlier, I did write an article about this that is live on the site. If you would like to check it out, I go into more detail and I talk about how each of our attachment styles develop from the point that we are infants. I will link that down below in the description box if you'd like to check it out. And again, if you wouldn't mind subscribing and liking this video, I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys all next time.